Hello everybody and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today we're continuing our discussion of Aspen's Snowmass, an intermediate rider's paradise. With Snowmass there's a lot to talk about, so this Insider's Guide is split into 3 parts. In this part we'll cover the Sam's Knob and Big Burn sides of the trail map. If you haven't already, go check out part A to get some great background on Snowmass and learn about the Elk Camp side of the mountain. So with that, let's continue in Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Snowmass. In the previous part, we started with the gondola and talked about all the terrain reachable from it. We'll now start with the Village Express lift. As I mentioned before, I prefer taking Village Express over the gondola since I feel that you get access to a lot more terrain right off the bat. Note that this Sky Cab is a pulse gondola that lets you get from the village to the Snowmass Mall and Coney Express. Because it's a pulse gondola, I'd recommend avoiding it, and you'll mostly only ever see foot passengers taking it. If you're trying to get to the Snowmass Mall at the end of the day, avoid riding past the top terminal of the Sky Cab. The Village Express is the longest chairlift on the mountain with an unload-only mid-station on Lunch Line, and its top terminal is adjacent to the top of the Sam's Knob lift. I would just recommend riding to the top unless you're a beginner. You also have the Coney Express lift adjacent to the Village Express, which is the resort's park chair. Coney, despite starting a bit up the hill, is a great out-of-base option on peak days. Take the bus up to the Village Mall stop, and from there, you should be able to eyeball both Village and Coney to tell which one looks shorter. Do beware that Coney sends some chairs empty to the mid-station, so its line will move significantly slower than Village. Village Express will be more practical to get to the Sam's Knob pod, while Coney will be a better choice if you're trying to lap the park or quickly get to the Big Burn pod. Let's now talk more about the trails underneath Coney. Monk's Hood is how you get out from the bottom of the Big Burn pod, even though it's really hard to tell on this map. It's always groomed and merges onto the lower half of Bonsai. Bonsai is an extension of Bonsai Ridge. While the upper half is not commonly groomed, when the run intersects with Monk's Hood, it becomes half groomed, half bumps. Lunch Line is one of the better green trails at the resort. It's basically a road that starts at the top of the Coney lift and leads you all the way down to the bottom of Sam's Knob. However, I'd recommend just continuing down Dawdler since there's no beginner terrain from the top of Sam's Knob. Cabin is basically the run that Snowmass's largest terrain park is located on. Coney Glade is a short but decent cruiser just next to it. Blue Grouse and Velvet Falls are 2 cruisers that filter into terrain parks of various sizes. Howes Hollow is your standard intermediate cruiser. Norway is a cut through the trees that allows you to bail out of skiing the terrain park runs. Scooper is a steeper and more direct green trail that allows you to bypass a good chunk of Lunch Line and Dawdler. The Scooper Platter services the kids' racing course on the Scooper Trail. It rarely runs, but even when it does, it honestly doesn't have much of a use. Everything on this main face of the mountain flows onto Fanny Hill. Despite Fanny Hill being wide and mild, it is by far the most congested trail in all of Snowmass, so I'd recommend avoiding it at all cost. Beginners, you may wish to stick to the Elk campsite. Additionally, its low altitude ensures slush a large percentage of the time. In case you can't tell, it's not my favorite run. One of the greatest features of this new Coney quad is that it has a mid-load close to the bottom of the parks here. However, based on what I've observed from Winter Park's Wildspur Express and Breckenridge's Beaver Run Superchair, I would recommend using the mid-station with Nuance for lapping the Coney pod. If there's no line at the mid, then obviously just go ahead and hop on. If there's a line at the mid but it's in the morning, you should probably stick to the mid because lines aren't going to be any better at the base. If there's a line at the mid and it's the afternoon, then ski right on past the line and head down to the bottom of Coney where, in all likelihood, you'll get on significantly faster. Use the mid-station to lap everything we just discussed, especially the terrain parks. If you're able to use the mid, then do it to avoid the Fanny Hill mess. You can access the mid by going straight down through the park on Cabin, traversing through here from Scooper and these blues, or by traversing through here from Monk's Hood. Those of you lapping the park will have to pick your poison between skipping a few features to get on at the mid or risking the lines at the base, as the mid-station is a little bit above the true bottom of the park. Now we'll move on to the Sam's Knob pod, which, like High Alpine, is one of the better advanced pods on the mountain. While they look pretty short on the trail map, runs here are typically just under a mile long. Slot and Campground are the only 2 blacks in this pod that are rotationally groomed. The remaining single blacks, Howler, Wildcat, Zugspitze, Promenade, and Fast Draw are typically bumped up. If you're skiing any runs lookers right of Slot, make sure to take this traverse to return back to the Sam's Knob lift if you don't want to ski all the way down to the Campground lift. Moving to the looker's left side of the ridge, Bonsai Ridge, Ute Chute, and Moonshine are all pretty consistently groomed. Ute Chute and Moonshine are on the steeper side for blues in Colorado, but they're short, which makes them good for progression. Max Park and Sunnyside are 2 trails that go from Sneakies to Big Burn. If you want a tougher alternative to these heavily traveled trails, there's a narrow mogul run through the trees called Hedgehog. Shifting over to the Campground lift, this is the only major fixed grip lift at Snowmass. The campground lift is essentially an extension of the Sam's Knob pod. As you'll see, a lot of these runs, such as slot and campground, start in the Sam's Knob pod, but technically continue all the way down to the bottom of the campground lift. While the Sam's Knob runs have very steep pitches before flattening out, the campground runs have more undulations, so in general, they're a bit more mild than the Sam's Knob runs. However, they're a bit longer than the Sam's Knob runs, with the lower halves of slot and campground having lengths of 1 mile. While the top to bottom can be a great run, I wouldn't recommend lapping campground all that much. Snow quality tends to be a bit sketchier at this lower elevation, and the lift is a bit of a hassle to lap. As we previously discussed, slot and campground both continue into the campground pod. Typically, if the upper part of the run is groomed, the lower part will also be groomed. Bear Claw starts about halfway down the Sam's Knob pod and is an absolute leg burner of a mogul run. The most interesting run in the campground pod is the Powderhorn Trail. From Sam's Knob, ski down towards Sneaky's and make a U-turn down in the valley to find the start of the trail. In addition, you can also access this run from Sneaky's in the Big Burn pod. Powderhorn essentially goes through the backside of Sam's Knob, which allows it to be completely isolated from the rest of the pod. From here, it's an absolutely brutal 2-mile mogul run all the way down to the base with no escape. Conditions towards the bottom can get quite variable due to sun exposure. While its double black rating is probably a bit of a stretch, Powderhorn is an epic run that's worth checking out at least once on a trip to Snowmass. Moving up to the Big Burn pod, this is my personal favorite intermediate pod at the resort. Big Burn sits at even higher of an elevation than the Elk Camp, which allows the snow quality to be even better. In addition, these runs are even more wide open than the Elk Camp runs. For Big Burn, we'll move from lookers right to left, starting with Sneaky's. Sneaky's is the mellowest run in the pod and is a great transitional blue for advanced beginners. It's really flat at the top but steepens towards the bottom. Even though the snow can be good, I'm not too crazy about Sneaky's glades because the tree spacing is a bit too tight in some sections. Jack of Hearts is a short little bump run that's a great place to try bumps for the first time. Powerline glades are by far my favorite trees off of Big Burn. The trees here are really nicely spaced and the pitch is perfect for intermediates. Mixed Gully is fun, but I prefer the runs lookers left of it. Dallas Freeway, Wineskin, and Whispering Jesse are my favorite cruisers in the whole resort. All of these runs start off pretty narrow, then open up significantly in the middle and become much steeper towards the bottom. Timberline is a bump run that goes under the lift, and I'm not too crazy about it. Coyote Hollow is just a connector trail from the top of Sheer Bliss to Big Burn. You can also get from the bottom of Big Burn to Sheer Bliss via this trestle connector trail, which, as its name implies, has a pretty long ridge over a significant gorge. Big Burn doesn't often get long lines, but when it does, Sheer Bliss almost always has shorter lines, so you can use it as an alternate via the 2 trails we just discussed. Speaking of which, let's wrap up this part of the guide by talking about Sheer Bliss's terrain itself. I'd say that this pod is geared towards advanced intermediates. I'm not the biggest fan of this pod, but it's not a bad place to take a lap or two. Garrett Gulch is a local's favorite and is exactly what it sounds like. It starts off lightly graded at the top and becomes a really fun natural halfpipe. Even though it's highly trafficked, it's totally worth checking out. Westface, Freefall, and Glissade are 3 super short but steep mogul runs. Westface is the easiest and Freefall is the steepest. They all filter into Garrett Gulch, so watch out for traffic from your left as you merge on. Freefall glades are the trees lookers left to Freefall and can be home to some pretty nice stashes. Sheer Bliss is the signature run in the pod, but is typically ungroomed. The run in general is pretty similar to those in the Big Burn pod, just a little bumpier. Finally, Camp 3 is a mogul run that runs adjacent to the lift and is nothing too special. From the bottom of Sheer Bliss, if you continue past the lift and head skiers right, you'll be able to reach the bottom of the Alpine Springs lift and make your way to the parts of the mountain we discussed in Part A. As mentioned in Part A, make sure to pick up a ton of speed here as the roads in this area are all very flat. Finally, there's a good amount of the cirque that's lappable from the Sheer Bliss lift, and that's exactly what we'll pick up in Part C. Well, that's about it for the Sam's Knob and Big Burn side of Snowmass. Now go check out Parts A and C all about the rest of the mountain. As always, please leave any questions down below. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.